One of my prime ideas was to reveal to the public that these guys are actually behind making fragrances, and they are the best perfumers in the world. They are the artists that are responsible for all the big fragrance blockbusters on the planet, and I have just asked them to do the fragrances that they would like to do if they had all the freedom in the world, if they didn't have all these marketing people sort of limiting them in terms of time, in terms of money, and with their market tests. So I have given them that freedom that allows them to treat fragrances like works of art.
Et puis, puisque c'est un anniversaire, bon anniversaire, Frederic Malle, 20 ans.
Oui.
Qu'est-ce qu'on peut vous souhaiter, puisque c'est un anniversaire?
Et
puis fêtez ça. Là, voilà, la période, on a envie de fête, donc voilà, faites une grande fête. Merci à vous tous, merci infiniment, et encore bon anniversaire, Frederic Malle. Au revoir à tous.
Hey, Salut friends. Today I thought of sharing my reactionary thoughts on a momentous event that has come to our attention recently, and that is Frederic Malle, the founder and the artistic director behind Edition Parfum. Frederic Malle has decided to part ways with his namesake brand by the end of 2024, which is owned by Estee Lauder. So we shall chat about it a bit, and later I will also share some fragrances from the house that I think are important in some ways since its establishment in 2000. Sometime down the line, I hope to do a full collection overview with my favorites. Now, I have noticed the cynicism toward the brand, mainly from some people who are new to the hobby. Criticism should always be welcomed. I have my own criticisms toward the brand, not a fan of some of their releases, but not sure why this kind of blunt hatred has creeped in recently. But for those of us who have been around for a minute in the hobby, especially from the 2010s, know how big of a news this is just by the sheer amount of influence he has had with contemporary perfumery, the industry, and the fragrance culture itself. I myself have said many times how it has been my favorite brand. I still remember in 2015 when I had just come to Paris for my master's at a business school, and during the weekends I would have friends inviting me for dinners, parties and so on. I would mostly avoid them because I already had a culture shock living in a new country. And then as a student from India, with the local currency and so on, I couldn't afford that sort of lifestyle. So I would engage in free hobbies like just roaming the streets of Paris, looking at bridges, monuments, parks, doing some sports and such. And with that, another old hobby of mine that one can do for free resurfaced, which was smelling fragrances. So I would go hang out in these malls and streets like Rue Saint-Honoré, where you have boutiques of all designer and niche perfumes. I ran into this boutique in the 4th arrondissement along the Rue des Francs Bourgeois and remember being absolutely blown away by what I smelled there. It was nothing like what I had smelled at Sephora, Marionette or Galeries Lafayette, and that was obviously the flagship boutique of Edition Parfum. I do not think I have been this taken back as far as perfume news goes, probably ever, at least within my time, not when Christopher Chong left Amouage, when Jacques Polge left Chanel, or Demachy left Dior, or even when Jean-Claude Ellena left Hermès. That is because of a myriad of reasons, I feel. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I think he was one of these creators who genuinely loved perfumes for what it is, the creative as well as artistic aspects behind it, and the people involved in the process. The brand has not made many releases that are really out there or anything. They have been mostly traditionally French perfumes, but they have been consistent and pushed the standards when it comes to niche perfumes, particularly in the mid-2000s. That is when you had the craze of other brands like Serge Lutens, Coutal, État Libre d'Orange, Comme des Garçons. Also when designer exclusives like Dior Privé or Chanel exclusives or Hermès Hermessence or Tom Ford's Private Blend, everything was launched. So along with Malle, it really represents that period of modern renaissance of fragrance, I think. Frederic as a creator was at the right place at the right time, I believe. He had a history in perfumery with his family. He himself worked in the perfume industry. He was also financially capable, technically competent to speak the perfumer's language. Talking of which, the trust he had earned from some of those great perfumers like Pierre Bourdon, Jean-Claude Ellena, Ropillon, or even the Rudnitskas cemented the position of his house. Will all these circumstances manifest for another perfumer creator is a big doubt. We all know how he does not claim to be a perfumer, by the way, and gives due credit. These neutral bottles, which are in some ways glorified lab samples, just more aesthetically well designed with the Parfums name, really encapsulated what the man behind the brand is about, focusing not on the external packaging or models for promotion, but more so about what is inside the bottle. This was at a time when people thought Yves Saint Laurent mixed fragrances in his toilet and the self-service boutiques started to take off. It is the brand I have the most fragrances from. In fact, I have every single one of them, though some I think are underwhelming. Overall, they have been more consistent than any brand I can think of. Not to mention, they have made only 35 or so fragrances in 25 years. Even did their oud releases the way it's supposed to be done. So in a way, I have been following the entire story, so to speak. The upscale Parisian French ethos he has naturally, with his tendency to be inspired by artists, classical music, movies, instead of putting on this mask, is something that I find admirable. He also seems to get along well with his staff. The people at his boutique are familiar with him, meet him personally on a regular basis, and take his direction for customer service apparently. The brand was sold to Estée Lauder in 2015, after which some things were changed. I'm still a fan of the stuff he released after that, like Music for a While, Citric Jungle, Rosé Cuir, and even last year's Heaven Can Wait. I still felt like he had reasonable creative control because of these reasons, and having that amount of control within a big corporate company is a big deal by itself. Then I started seeing things like Uncut Gem and the newest Acne Studios, which do not live up to the brand's standards. I also noticed the discontinuations, renaming, and some collaborations which made no sense, like a Musc Ravageur special edition with some Korean brand. Finally, I also came across some marketing mails which felt like they were totally against his values, like layering combos and stuff. That's when I felt something was going on. Could it be that he has lost interest because of what happened or what is about to happen to the brand from the business side of things? Has he faced some pressure because of the turnover or from the recent EU regulations and such? Possibly. I'm just speculating here. On the contrary, like I said, he still seemed to have a decent amount of creative control. Estée Lauder also seems to respect him and know him and his brand are not just business minded. Though Malle has been transparent about him being in the luxury perfume business a few times, he even revamped their legacy releases recently, so it just may be a case of mutually agreeing to part ways. With all that being said, now let's take a look at some of the brand's important fragrances. These are not going to be full reviews, but just a quick run through. First is in a way where it all started in 2000. This is Le Parfum de Thérèse by Edmond Ronitska, who Frederic has said many times is his greatest influence. This was posthumously released after Edmond Ronitska's wife, Thérèse, who this is named after, wore it as her signature scent since the 50s, and also with the permission of his son, Michel Rudnitska, both of whom agreed to let Frederic launch it under the legendary perfumer's name. This is a fruity chypre known as the prune or the plum, clearly hinting at others like Diorella and Rochas Femme. Melon, plum, some florals like rose and jasmine in there, dries down to this soft leather and patchouli. Just a beautiful, cascading, smooth perfume, absolutely stunning. Additionally demonstrating the generations of perfumers Frederic worked with, starting from Rudnitska to today's Raskine. This cemented his approach of referencing classic perfumes, which is what brings this soul and charm to his fragrances, I feel. That is why even other niche brands, which may even have higher quality materials, do not move me or connect with me emotionally in the same way. Next is another one from the 2000 debut lineup that put the brand on the map. This is Musc Ravageur by Maurice Roussel. This cozy, kinky, musky vanillic amber with Christmas spices and the infamous warm skin accord has this purr and growl to it. Again based on Coty's Emeraude and to a lesser extent Guerlain Shalimar. Also made Maurice Roussel a household name. Still popular to this day and gets a lot of praise. It is not a top favorite of mine personally, but I can see the appeal and definitely an important release for the house. Frederic apparently asked Roussel to add bergamot and cinnamon and pretty much took the scent as is, which is a dream for any perfumer. After that is L'Eau d'Hiver by Jean-Claude Ellena from 2003. Frederic and Jean-Claude Ellena have a lot of mutual respect. Ellena even wrote the foreword for his 20th anniversary book. This is a warm, musky, powdery, heliotrope fragrance with iris and honey touches. It happens to be a subversion of the concept of an eau style of scent, which is usually for warmer weather. This is different in that it's called winter water, so it feels like this warm, cushiony cashmere sweater with the musks, done in this ethereal, clean style of Jean-Claude Ellena. Absolutely fantastic. Also happens to be the last official fragrance that Jean-Claude did before leaving for Hermès. Speaking of which, Jean-Claude Ellena worked on an intense version of his Angélique sous la pluie, which Pierre Bourdon would later take over and rework as French Lover or Bois d'Orage in 2007. This is green, sappy, lot of galbanum, angelica, crushed stems, leaves, grass and roots, with a lot of cedar, some echo of incense, iris, oud and musk in the background. Great green fragrance. Happens to be the last proper official release from Pierre Bourdon, who Frederic considers as family. Additionally, a nod to a character from his uncle Louis Malle's film. Over to Dries Van Noten's Portrait from 2013, created by Bruno Jovanovic. A scent that does justice to sandalwood and yet adds a lot of strange components. Has this pulpy, fruity opening with the sacrosol, warm spices like cinnamon, nutmeg and saffron sprinkled in there. Dries down to this doughy sandalwood scent with a lot of vanilla. Paints an image of hanging out in a chic European cafe. Also does justice to this eclectic world of Dries. A sensational, charming fragrance. Now let the European Mall Marathon begin. Someone with whom Frederic has worked with for more than 20 years. First is Carnal Flower from 2005. Arguably the most intricate from the entire collection. Also opened me up to florals. This has tuberose in the spotlight with all the other elements working to highlight it. Fruitiness from the melon, milky creaminess from the coconut, andolic character from the jasmine. Just this three-dimensional, super realistic, living and breathing floral concoction. One that someone may not like, but the amount of effort that has gone in is evident. As with the almost 700 iterations and 18 months that took to complete it. Next is Geranium pour Monsieur from 2009, a minty green aromatic with a lot of spices like anise and cloves. And of course a lot of refreshing cool geranium with a dry down of musks and a streak of sandalwood. Designed after the mouthwash of Fredric's father. Fantastic for warmer weather. This could be one of the best modern interpretations of a classic fougere. Next is the Night from 2014, made as a response to the oud craze. Takes the framework of Portrait of a Lady, mainly the rose, patchouli, amber and sandalwood, and adds a huge dose of animalic, barnyardy, blue cheese, Hindi oud. Astonishingly beautiful fragrance in the dry down. A perfect balance of a Middle Eastern style of fragrance done by a Western French master perfumer. Yes, it is extremely expensive and now there are many others who have followed suit. But when this came out, there was nothing like this in the West. And last but not least, Portrait of a Lady from 2010. One that has become so popular and synonymous with the brand. It is its own signature. You hear the name, everyone knows what fragrance it refers to. Taking the base of Geranium pour Monsieur, adding a lot of amber, patchouli and a good dose of rose. They created this operatic amber oriental baroque perfume. Such a spellbinding, grand, epic fragrance. Apparently Fredric's wife Marie's signature scent. Personally, I have a lot of fond memories with the smell. Many special occasions. There are people back home who after years, even though I wear a lot of other things, still remember this as their favorite of my scents. In conclusion, the house has been one of the reasons I got into this hobby and why I love perfumes. So it feels like an end of an era. Not sure yet if or who is going to lead the brand now. But for me, the man is the main part of the story. It is called Edition Parfum par Frederic Malle, and it is all about him and a perfumer working to create a scent. If anything, they could change it to Edition Parfum by whoever, but don't think they would do that as it concerns brand image and cachet. I'll still keep an open mind, we shall see what happens. As for Frederic, I'm glad that he was able to take on this journey and gave us many great fragrances. I know French people take their retirement seriously, but personally I think he still has things to offer and will continue with some other endeavor. That is also what the press release seems to be hinting at. We will wait and see whether he will take a creative position at another house, or this is what I would personally like to see. That is for him to go back to his roots, scale down and start a new project with all the values like creative freedom that he stood for. I would be really interested if that happens. With all that being said, for now the fragrances are still here, so I will continue to do reviews, wear them and enjoy them. Thanks for watching, take care and ciao.